Hi guys, welcome back to another video, and today's video we're going to be going over the best AFL fantasy scoring players from the aami preseason matches. We'll start off with the first game, St Kilda vs Carlton. As you can see, Jack Sinclair was the highest scorer. He had 28 touches and looked very good in the St Kilda midfield. He's currently sitting very nice in both my AFL fantasy and my Supercoach team, though he is someone I am considering taking out. He looked very good, and if he can do anything 100 plus in that Giants game, and if he can average anywhere above 80, I think he's priced at around a 73, low 70s average. So if he can do any better than that, then he is a great pickup. Jack Steele got 109, rounded up to about 110, which is a little less than he probably should be getting, but not some of the possession was taken up by Jack Sinclair, and it was mainly just a practice match, so I wouldn't worry about him being about 5 to 6 points off the mark. Jack Higgins had a really good game, and this is very promising. He isn't sitting very nice in my forward line. He has been for pretty much this entire lead up to these games. I really like him. He hit 2 goals against the game against North Melbourne, and he's followed that up with, I believe, 2 goals against Carlton. He got the low 20s for his touches. So overall, I think he's a really good forward pick because his value is just like over the roof. His value will be insane. So I reckon you should consider at least picking him up for a small forward role. The forward jacks for St Kilda were incredible, and to finish it off, Jack Loney, who had the highest score at halftime, he had 69 points by halftime. He kicked 4 goals and was great. Mark Pittett looked really good in the ruck, and if he can do anywhere close to 99, then he's also a really good value. Bradley Hill started to show Saints fans why they should trust him and why he can live up to his expectations. Mark Murphy also had a really good game, but apart from that, I don't really think anyone else had a super game. Let's go on to the Collingwood-Richmond match. So in the Tigers-Collingwood match, we had the highest scorer of the round, Jaden Short, and I'm going to admit he was someone who I was very thinking about, and I was thinking about him a lot in picking him in my team. But after 171 points, I just couldn't ignore him, and he is now in my team. Jordan De Goey looked really good and is definitely someone I'm considering, but right now I'm pretty happy with my forward line, so he's not in my team. Caddy, that's a really good performance, but I don't see there's a way in just that stacked Richmond team that he's going to do anywhere near that when it comes to the actual season. So I wouldn't get, if you're thinking about picking him, I wouldn't. He's not going to do that anywhere close to 125 in the regular season. Scott Pendlebury doing Scott Pendlebury things. Great performance. And yeah, if you pick him, I can see why now. But he is a bit old, so just be careful. Maybe picks up an injury or two, but he had looked really good. Campbell McIntosh looked good. Liam Baker also looked good off halfback. Shane Edwards was very good and strong in the midfield. Jack Crisp had a great game, not quite up to his price in my opinion, and I haven't really been thinking about him, but still a great game. Let's get on to the Hawthorn. So for the Hawthorn, North Melbourne one, the highest scorer was Tom Phillips. And after this performance, he's got to come into consideration because he is the player. He could potentially, for that first 4 to 6 weeks, be a star player because there's going to be no Gunston, no Sicily, and Wingard looks in doubt. So definitely for round one, him and Liam Shields are going to have to really step up. So I think that Tom Phillips could be spending a lot of time in the midfield, and I think he's going to just be an absolute great player there. In fantasy, he averaged 82 last year in AFL Fantasy. I reckon he's going to average more than that. I reckon we're looking for a season upwards of 85. Maybe even 90, depends on how much time he gets in the midfield. And he is a multi-choice player, so you can play him in the forward line. And with the forward line looking a bit weak after Dunkley, he's probably should pick him. Liam Shields also did really well, but that's expected because there's no one in the Hawks midfield. Harry Morrison had a good game, but not really considering him. Don Tyson had a good game, so the people who were picking him, there you go, he's looking promising. Josh Walker kicked a couple of goals, but I don't really think you should pick him. Jaden Stevenson really making a case for that forward role. And, yeah, just absolutely great. Jacob Kozicki, I think people should really think about maybe putting him on your defensive bench, since defensive rookie is looking a bit rocky right now. And he's looking set to start round one after that performance. And if he plays forward for Hawthorn and he's one of their big targets with Gunston gone, then he could really rack up some points. Without further ado, let's get on to Geelong-Essendon. There weren't many high scorers in the Geelong-Essendon game, but there were a few talking points. I'm going to admit Jordan Clark has jumped into my team because I have been thinking of putting him in my team, and after this he's probably going to play in round one and further, so I feel like he's a good young and cheap pick, especially if he can do anywhere near 135, which he probably won't. Zach Merritt also, you kind of got to push him up in your contention ranks now. He wasn't a must-have, and he still isn't, but he's definitely pushing his way up there into contention and probably got himself in quite a few sides. Darcy Parish, he's an all-right player, and I could understand you picking him after that performance, but I don't really see it, and I don't think he'll be that consistent. Tom Stewart, pulling out Tom Stewart things, and Jed Blues having an all-right game. But overall, there weren't too many high scorers in this. I think the main point is now you've got to consider Jordan Clark, and Zach Merritt probably moves quite a bit up in the ranks of, midfield and where you're going to pick him. Again, for the Giants-Sydney game, there weren't many high scorers, but Tim Taranto, I have him currently in my Supercoach side, and I didn't know what he scored in this game. And then I went to check, and I was like, scoring 121. He was someone I was thinking about getting rid of and maybe upgrading. But now, I think he's a bit of a firm place in my side. Sam Wicks had that's promising performance. Toby Green also had a really good performance. Luke Parker as well. And Sam Reid. But overall, there weren't many too high performers, and there's nothing really get from this game. Taranto obviously having a good game, along with Toby Green, are probably the main ones. But Sam Wicks and Sam Reid, I'm not really reading much out of that. And Luke Parker doing Luke Parker things, but I don't think he's going to quite average the 90 this season. So a lot to talk about this Port Adelaide game. Dan Houston had an incredible game, 154. Definitely, probably should pick him if you're having struggling picking that defence. Riley Bonner had a really good performance, and maybe you start thinking about him, but I'm not. Ollie Wines, that's pretty promising, but he's getting on and he's a bit older now, so I'm not really thinking him. Zach Butters, bit unfortunate, I believe. That's Connor Rosie. Yeah, but great performance by Zach Butters, pulling at 111. Carl Amon, also good performance, pulling at 100. Alia, really showing how good of a recruit he is. Robbie Gray, also with 99, really pushing up. But you got to think a lot of these power scores are inflated because they were versing an Adelaide Crow side that looked very flat, especially with the defenders. Kicks were just being bombed in there, and there were intercept marks all day for the power. Rory Laird with a 97, that obviously is really good signs. He looks like he played most time in the midfield. And I think he's got to be a lock for your defence. Don't pick him in your midfield because you can get other better players there. Pick him in your defence because he's going to play a lot of midfield time, and he's gonna be quality, and he's going to get you midfield points. Darcy Byrne-Jones had a pretty good performance. William Drew also had a pretty good performance, and Xavier Dersma also had a great performance. I just wanted to throw him in there because I thought it's pretty nice for him to get that good performance. But the power scores will be a bit inflated, so just keep that in mind. So, let's get on to the West Coast and Dockers game. As you can see, Ethan Hughes, definitely someone I'm going to look a bit more into, but I'm still really not taking much out of this game. Michael Frederick also had a good game. For me, the main one is Andrew Brayshaw and the Nat Fife. Obviously, Nat Fife, it seems, is going to play a bit more forward this year, so I'm not going to recommend picking him. But if he does more games like this, then who knows? I'd pick Nat Fife maybe if he had the forward option, but because he's an only midfielder and he's going to play forward, I don't want to take up that slot, especially for that price. Andrew Gaff, that was a good game. Same with Don Sheed, Shannon Hearn, Jackson Nelson, as someone who I have in one of my draft leagues. I'm pretty impressed and happy with his performance of a 91, because hopefully that means he plays on the weekend. Blake Acres had a pretty impressive performance, and so did Tom Barras, but nothing much to take out of this game apart from the fact about Andrew Brayshaw and Nat Fife's performance, both pulling out 98s, which is very good. Now, the scores were very impressive, obviously, for the Dogs players, but the main thing we need to take out of this is Dunkley and the Dogs midfield. Dunkley pulled out 130, and you now maybe have to put him back into consideration, even though it looks like he might not be playing. The other big thing out of this game is the fact that how well the Dogs midfield scored. So McRae, Bontempelli, Liberatore, all three of them scored over 115. Patrick Lipinski also got 100. Bailey got 95, and Lockie Hunter got around 88, I believe. Tim English also got a 96, and Caleb Daniel got 108 in that halfback defensive role. So the main takeaway out of this is maybe picking Dunkley is still an okay choice, and the Dogs midfield may actually perform well, despite the fact that the ball is going to be more spread around with the elite midfielders. This Dogs team didn't include Adam Treloar though, so, maybe he'll make much of a difference. I don't think so, and now I'm going to go back and consider whether Jack McRae, Bontempelli, Liberatore, maybe it's worth actually picking one of them. There are a few takeaways from this game. I would say the main ones are the fact that Jared Berry was the top scorer, and as someone who's already scoring pretty well, maybe you consider him now. I don't think so. Lockie Weller scored well, which I'm pleased about because he is also in one of my draft leagues. Tuke Miller also scored well. Dayton Zorko scored 109, and as someone who I'm considering maybe being him or Dusty are really the ones I'm considering for that big splash of the cash in the forward line. And he did make a better case than Dusty did this week to be in my side for round 1. Will Brodie had a pretty decent performance. Darcy McParsons also had a pretty decent performance with 105. Alex Sexton kicked 6 goals and got a score of 98. Will Powell got a score of 96. Brandon Ellis kept up the good form at Gold Coast with a 95. Lockie Neal only scored a 94. So maybe take that as a bit worrying, but he's a premium and maybe he's not going as hard as he is. And Grant Burnshall turned up with a 90, but it was against the Gold Coast Suns. So you've got to put that into consideration.